At what point did you realize that you were just being used? My friends, married, would always want to just hang out with us three alone, never inviting me to hang out with their other friends. They would ask me to watch their dogs all the time while they were out of town with said friend group, because the dogs just love you only. I think I fully realized it when all the friend pictures in their house included none of me. Yep, I was also in a situation where a friend was constantly asking us to watch their dog. Then one day I was in a bind and really needed someone to watch our dogs for a short amount of time. When I asked, they said it wasn't convenient for them. I started to realize the only time they reached out to me was when they wanted something. I thought we were friends, but started to realize I was just providing a free kennel. There comes a point in many friendships where you realize that if the tables were turned, the other person probably would not do nearly as much for you as you're doing for them. This hit me really hard. Fuck. I'm always the first person to raise my hand when a friend is moving. The last time I moved my wife, and I did it alone because everyone was busy. For me, it was when my wife and I drove 1,400 miles for someone's wedding when my wife was 30+ weeks pregnant. Our son is a year and a half old now, and this friend has never once come to meet him. When I said that I can't afford to keep footing the bill every time we go out, and her response was, "Maybe you should work harder." When I noticed that Daisy, the goat down the road, was only happy to see me if I was walking by with food. If I had nothing to eat, she wouldn't give me the time of day. She's a people user. They stopped inviting me out and texting me when I told them I didn't want them to store their weed at my place anymore. So much for best friends. Girl I had considered my best friend through high school and college whined for weeks about how she had nowhere to go for Thanksgiving, kicked out by her fundy parents at 18, so I invited her to dinner with my family. She didn't show up, so I called to see what happened. Turns out she did have places to go for the holiday, 7 different houses, including her parents, and she didn't think she could fit us, i.e., the person she'd called her best friend for nearly a decade, into her plans. When I asked if she had been planning on calling me at any point to tell me she couldn't come, she said no. Just no. Not even a half-assed apology. I hung up on her, and spent the rest of the night analyzing my friendship with her. I realized that despite all I did, giving her rides, storing her stuff, attending her life events where I was promptly forgotten, and spending a ridiculous amount of time on the phone helping her work through her drama of parents' boys' money school, including helping her plan a wedding to a man I later learned wasn't even legally divorced from his first wife, she didn't reciprocate at all. When I talked to her about my problems, she made a show of listening before changing the subject to her problems, which would go on for hours. We had to do activities she wanted or eat at places she liked. We had to work around her schedule, but there was always a good chance that she would blow me off without even telling me. I promptly disappeared from her life. I don't even think she noticed. Nearly all of my girlfriend's friends are like this to her. She still doesn't understand why I don't like any of them even when I tell her that is the reason. That they don't respect her at all. When she complained to me, "I wish someone would just buy me a car so I don't have to drive around that $500 ancient car." I had bought her the $500 ancient car. When I pleaded with my father to pay me like a normal employee so I could get EI when I went to school, he said no, it was too much work to do it and would cost him money. I quit 2 days later and went to work for his competition. Haha, when I left high school I took a year out before college and my dad offered me a job at his company. I jumped right on that because sending out resumes and applications seemed like a total pain in the ass. Well, he refused to put me on the payroll and said he'd just pay me out of pocket, which turned out to mean $100 a week. I was working over 50 hours a week and working my ass off. Quit that job pretty quickly. $2 an hour? Fuck your dad, man. Yeah, I don't know why he thought that was okay. It's really weird because he'll happily send me money if I'm ever in a jam, no questions asked. But when I tried to actually work for money, he basically didn't pay me. I was with my ex-fiancée for 3 years. There were a lot of major red flags that I was being used during the last 5 months of our relationship. His company lost a lot of jobs, barely had any work for their employees to do, maybe worked a couple hours once or twice a week. All his coworkers went and found side work together to stay afloat. He didn't join them. He did stop paying his share of the bills and instead used that money to go out drinking all day or buying some new unnecessary part for his truck. Every time I asked if he could chip in even just a tiny bit for bills, he said he couldn't. Then I'd find a receipt for a $100 bar tab carelessly left on the counter. It was obvious he had checked out and just wanted to sit around, do whatever he wanted and not work. The defining moment was while we were driving home after hanging out with friends. Someone jokingly asked when we were planning to get married. We had been engaged for 2 years. I flat out asked him, "When are we getting married? When are we going to start a family?" We talked excitedly about it so much after he proposed. "You know, I don't really want to get married. I think we're fine how we are. And I don't even know if I want kids." Yep, I'm being used. He's just dragging me along. He doesn't love me anymore or was never in love with me to begin with. But I'm definitely just the person who pays his bills. I had a suspicion he was cheating again, but no evidence. It was my birthday and I asked if he wanted to go to dinner. Obviously I would be paying. Nope, he didn't feel like it. He didn't get me a gift. I didn't want anything, but I hoped for some small gesture, a handwritten note, something. I bought myself a small cake. "You want to hang out and eat cake with me?" Nope, too busy watching TV. A week later I told him I was done, that he could take a couple days, but he needed to pack up and go back to his dad's house. Suddenly he was crying. Suddenly he was paying attention to me. "I'll marry you. We can start trying for a baby tomorrow. With what job? What money? You don't even care to be anywhere near me. You ignored me on my birthday." He packed up and left the next day. I found out a couple weeks later he was seeing another girl behind my back and that she was pregnant. My girlfriend was in a bad accident, and a female friend of mine was helpful with helping me deal with everything going on. A week after the accident, my girlfriend died. My friend started trying to get closer to me. Due to the state I was in, depressed, lonely, just wanting to feel happy again, my judgment was skewed and we started hanging out a lot. A little over a month later, she sends me a text stating that we can't see each other anymore. Turned out she was using me to make her crush jealous. Really fucked me up for a while. I never fully coped with the passing of my girlfriend because of it all. My drama queen grandmother was basically disowned by everyone but my dad and I. It seemed like she really cared about me, and we were close, but something felt off. One day, her and my dad had a huge fight, and she's calling me, crying, saying, "If I don't have my son, I have no one." She said it in the next 3 conversations. When I tried confronting her about how she treated my dad, she said she needed a break from talking to me. It all hit me at once. She was using me as some kind of audience to fuel her self-esteem. It was always about her, and her drama. She didn't love me, she loved the shock value and validation I gave her, and when I stopped, I had used up my value. When he would constantly bitch about money even though he wouldn't hold down a job for more than a couple months at a time. I would pay for dinners and anything else for dates because he said he didn't have the money, even though he had champagne taste. I don't expect gifts, but he couldn't even take me out or get me something small for my birthday or our anniversary. But then ended up buying himself a $500 bike because it was cool. I have hot friends. Guys calling me to invite me to come out with them, then casually at the last minute suggest I bring certain friends. Fuck off, dudes. If you want me to hook you up with my hot friends, just say that in the first place. Never. I'm the kind of jerk that doesn't even allow the setup for that sort of thing. Example. Person at work. "Hi Jay, any plans for the weekend?" Me. "I'm not covering your shift for you, Meg." We had been friends since high school. About 10 years or so later, another friend of mine went, real talk, on me and asked when the last time I was with Katie, without her needing a ride, or asking to borrow something, etc., etc. I chew on that for a few months, and realized, she really does only call when she needs a ride, money, advice, or a sitter. She was never really around when I needed something, which was rare, or if I just had a crappy day and needed to vent, she would call me right back. Never. I started distancing myself from her gradually, and once I started turning down her requests, weeks would go by before I'd hear from her. One night, after several weeks of no communication other than an occasional comment or like on FB, she called to ask if I could give her a clean urine sample for her new big job at Arby's. End friendship. 10 years up in smoke. Back in high school, I was one of the first to have my license and a car. I noticed that my friends wanted to hang out with me a lot less when they got their own cars' licenses. Yeah, not very proud that I didn't see the writing on the wall. They say it was just a coincidence that we fell through at the time, but I think it's pretty obvious. At what point did you realize that you were just being used? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.